Greetings and salutations. It is I, Mr. Nothing, the museum curator of the weird and the strange and the host, who might be a ghost. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the strange and the unusual literature that I have found in my travels throughout Isla Sorna, somewhere near Costa Rica. Today, I want to talk about a book that I read, a book that focuses on extinction and dinosaurs, and is a sequel to another book on dinosaurs that I read, not for this channel, mind you, but in the past. I am talking about The Lost World by Michael Crichton. An interesting book. It has, a fossil on the cover, and on the back it says, "Something has survived." So, a very dramatic book. I previously have read Jurassic Park, which was a good book. The movie definitely elevates it a bit, but there's lots of good pieces in the original Jurassic Park. And I've also read Prey by Michael Crichton, which I think does a wonderful job of setting the story up, and has a lot of tense moments. Michael Crichton is really good at tension. But unfortunately, the back half of the book, the execution leaves a lot to be desired, and it comes off kind of cartoonish, and I think it sinks the book totally. So I wanted to see, if any of the other Michael Crichton books held up. And so I thought, what better way to do that than with The Lost World, which I picked up from my local library. Don't forget to support your local libraries. That's always a cool thing to do. I could have read any number of other Michael Crichton books, but I didn't. And, I do want to check out more Michael Crichton in the future, just to see, what his back catalog looks like, because I've heard so many good things about it. Mainly the movie adaptations, not so much the books themselves. Maybe that's telling you something there. But interestingly, Michael Crichton does a lot of adaptations of his own books. He writes the movie version, so, kind of interesting, kind of weird. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about The Lost World, do a little summary, a little analysis, and we will move on from there. The Lost World focuses on Ian Malcolm, a character from the first book. Interestingly, in the first book, Ian Malcolm dies. His injuries sustained in the T-Rex attack prove fatal, and he dies by the end of the book. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, Ian, the movie adaptation made Ian Malcolm a compelling character, played by Jeff Goldblum. So, of course, Jeff Goldblum's going to knock it out of the park. And I guess the fan love for Ian Malcolm was led to Michael Crichton bringing him back. And he said, I like how it's done, because Ian Malcolm, people say, "Hey, didn't you die in Costa Rica?" And he's like, "Oh, no, the rumors of my death were exaggerated. I'm actually doing pretty good. Nothing bad is happening to me." So he had a team of doctors work on him, and everything turned out to be pretty good. But Ian Malcolm starts the story off by giving a speech at a seminar where he talks about extinction and why people don't know why. They know that it has happened before, but they don't know what caused it, because you can't recreate those scenarios in a lab or anything like that. You can't go back in time and see what exactly killed the dinosaurs, whether it was behavior or whether it was environment. A character named Richard Levine sort of raises this question and is like, well, what about Lost Worlds? Wouldn't that give us an opportunity to explore the idea of extinction more thoroughly? And Ian Malcolm just sort of hand waves it and is like, I don't want to talk about that right now. But interestingly, Levine follows him out of the seminar and asks him about hearing about stories about dinosaurs in Costa Rica, and wonders what Ian Malcolm was doing in Costa Rica, especially to sustain such vicious attacks. And Ian again hand waves it and says, "Oh, nothing happened in Costa Rica." But we know this to be false, especially if you read the first book, because Ian was, at Jurassic Park, so he knows that dinosaurs are real, and you could create that sort of lost world environment for you to study those conditions leading to extinction. Eventually, the Levine character travels to Costa Rica, where he discovers a bunch of strange animals that have washed up on shore, but the Costa Rican government is like, stay away from this, there's viruses associated with them, we got to clean this up. So a lot of cover-up going on, and eventually, Levine finds his way to Isla Sorna, which is near Isla Nublar, where the first story once happened. However, contact is lost with Levine, as his sort of guide is eaten by a dinosaur, and Levine is forced to run away and can't keep up communication with Ian Malcolm or any of their friends. So this forces Ian and his friends, Thorne, I believe, is one of them, and Sarah Harding, who studies predator behavior in Africa. They've decided to go to Isla Sorna. Sarah a little bit later, because she's in Africa at that moment. So they decide to travel to Isla Sorna, where they find the engine building, and they discover that the Isla Sorna was being used as a dinosaur factory, where they bred the creatures into existence, and then they transferred it to Isla Nublar, where people thought, oh, that's the only place where they're making animals, but it turns out that was not the only place where they were making animals. InGen, the company behind this whole experiment, was lying to everybody. And while they're at the engine building, Ian Malcolm and the group encounter a T-Rex, but the T-Rex just hurries on by, which is very curious. And Ian Malcolm at the time freezes, because in an interesting bit, I think Michael Crichton covers the PTSD that Ian Malcolm must be feeling, because the T-Rex in the first book nearly killed him, or did kill him, sort of. But that dinosaur is not a factor at this time. It's going somewhere else. It might be afraid of the engine building or something. So while they're all looking around for Levine at that time, a character by the name of Lewis Dodgson, who was in the first book. Lewis Dodgson is a sort of a corporate spy of sorts. Companies send him in when they want to steal, when they want to do corporate espionage, so that they can steal the products of other corporations and their trade secrets. And Lewis appears in the first Jurassic Park book by convincing Dennis Nedry to steal some fertilized eggs from Jurassic Park, so that other companies can know about InGen's secrets. Unfortunately, Dennis Nedry dies, so Lewis Dodgson didn't get what he was hoping for. So he decides. So because he's following this group around, he knows that they're heading to Isla Sorna. So he's hoping to go there and strike it rich by stealing some dinosaur eggs. He encounters Sarah Harding along the way and invites her on his boat. But before they get to the island, he pushes her off. She manages to swim ashore, but he is clearly a terrible person, and he has two other people with him at the time who are just why did you do that? That's really evil of you, Lewis. And Lewis is I do what I want. Well, Lewis is on the island. He does steal some eggs, and then he tries to steal some T-Rex eggs, and he uses a machine that emits a loud noise that scares away the T-Rex parents, and then just tries to steal some eggs. The T-Rex ends up chasing him and his friends away, and one of them even gets eaten by the T-Rex because the box came unplugged and stopped making the noise, and so the T-Rexes they attacked, and they end up driving away and getting hurt, and they're taken out of the story for a little bit. Meanwhile, Eddie, who is with Ian's group, he takes the baby T-Rex that was at the nest, and instead of killing it, which is what Ian suggests morbidly, they take it back to their RVs to treat it and make sure that the dinosaur can heal, because Eddie has a heart of gold. However, the adult T-Rexes follow Ian go back. They go back to the RVs, and they demand the baby back through their various dinosaur noises. And when they give the baby back, Ian realizes that something is wrong, and the dinosaurs try to push the RVs off the cliff. Luckily, the dinosaurs leave, and that enables Eddie and Thorn to rescue them before the RVs fall off the cliff and they all die. So but in the midst of all this, Ian is gravely injured again, but Sarah is able to give him some morphine, which takes him out of the rest of the story. Really makes him like a non-factor. Unfortunately, Eddie has placed the two children who traveled with them. They kind of snuck onto the island in the sort of like trunk of one of the cars. So they're in the High Hide, which is a place that's safe from the other creatures. Unfortunately, the raptors that exist on the island found the High Hide and have devised interesting ways to bring it down. In between eating one of Dodson's other people that he brought on the island. So while Sarah and the gang all chase down the kids in order to get them back from the raptors, Ian is just kind of out of it and is thinking of like why extinction is going on and all the chaos on the island. And he's not really coming up with anything cogent because he's high on morphine at the time. Eventually they manage to get the kids back, and they go back to the engine facility, and they discover these camouflaged dinosaurs who are predators, but they don't want to come into any of the light because that would affect their ability to camouflage themselves. And so they figure that this must be why so many creatures avoid the engine facility, is because it's the territory of these chameleon-like creatures. They don't play a large role in the story, and I think it's just an interesting idea that Crichton wanted to toss out there. In the process of like trying to escape the island, Sarah and Dodson both hide under a car, and the T-Rex comes by, and Sarah pushes Dodson out in front of the dinosaur, possibly as revenge for the terrible thing that Dodson did to her, which is push her off the boat. Moving past that terrible thing that one of the main characters did, Sarah is able to escape while Dodson is eaten alive by the T-Rexes and the baby T-Rex. And they escape by boat, and Ian tries to posit like why extinction happens again. But, one of the other characters like, it doesn't really matter, which is just sort of how the story ends there. So in terms of analysis, I want to say that Crichton is really great at building tension. This is similar to Prey, where you have a story about nanomachines that can adapt to human behavior and can make life really miserable to them and possibly kill them. He's great at that here because he introduces scenarios with raptors and T-Rexes and dangerous situations where the characters have to escape from, and he doesn't just let it end rapidly. He builds it up. Again, much like Jurassic Park, where you have the characters at the T-Rex area, and the T-Rex escapes and starts causing havoc. It's built up very well, and you end up with like very tense moments throughout the book that keep you on edge and wanting to read more. So there's a part in the book where again Lewis Dodson is trying to steal the eggs from a T-Rex next. Not a good idea because T-Rexes are dangerous animals. So I'll read you a little passage from there. Dodson began to climb down into the nest himself, but as he started, he twisted his body and the battery plug pulled out of the box. The sound abruptly died. In the clearing, there was silence. Basilton moaned. The Tyrannosaurs shook their heads a final time and roared. I think that's really good at building the tension and then like creating an oh no moment, because that box that Dodson had was just emitted sound that annoyed every dinosaur in the immediate vicinity. So they wouldn't attack Dodson or his friends, and then the box comes unplugged, and you're like, oh boy, that's not good. Those T-Rexes are gonna do a number on this group. So yeah, Crichton does a wonderful job, and it's a strong book because of that, and I think I recommend it based on that alone. Another interesting idea that Crichton throws out there is the idea of chaos, especially because that's Ian Malcolm's specialty. He's a chaos mathematician, and so like it's interesting to see like how like chaos in any symptom, like the basis is like chaos in any system throws that system out of whack, and you need to remove the participants who are causing that chaos for it to go back to normal. And that's just demonstrated here by the humans entering this lost world where things are kind of fine on their own. There's an ecosystem that exists, but the moment the humans come on and start stealing dinosaur eggs and terrorizing the various animals that live there, they throw the whole system into chaos, and it risks like just taking down the whole island and possibly killing all the dinosaurs. Which I think is an interesting idea that Michael Crichton brings up. I do wish he would have elaborated a little more on it and filled it more throughout the whole book. And as it stands, it's a little weak, but I think he focuses on it enough that you can see what he was trying to do there. On the other hand, I do think there was too much science with this book. He goes into natural selection and Darwinian theories a lot. And if he did anything with this, like it would be a stronger book for it. Or at least it'd be a good text to, do your homework on. But at the very end of the book, one of the characters is like, so why do dinosaurs go extinct? Bring back the very beginning. And then one of the characters is like, I don't know. Science is going to change in 100 years. So like, why even posit about it now? Which I feel just takes away the legs of the most of the book, because if it doesn't matter why you brought up this question, why did you bring it up in the first place? I had assumed you were going to make some attempt to answer that question by the end of the book. But for you to say, like, oh, it doesn't matter, it makes me feel like I'm wrong for caring about it. It doesn't hold up. Like, it's very... I think it's one of the weaker parts of Michael Crichton. And this happens in many of his books. Like, he focuses so heavily on science, but he doesn't do anything with it. And I think he's just showing off. Like, and no one likes to show off. Like I get that you know science, but do something with this science, you Harvard dropout. Like, quit wasting my time, Michael. And then the last thing that I want to touch upon is how Ian Malcolm is a weird protagonist. Ian Malcolm became a fan favorite, but that's because of Jeff Goldblum. Like, the Ian Malcolm that existed in the first Jurassic Park was an annoying jackass who kind of deserved to die because he wouldn't shut up about math and chaos, and he wouldn't stop, annoying Hammond about how his park would inevitably fail. And he does change a bit in Jurassic, or in the Lost World, into more of a well-rounded character who cares about other people, but he still treats people with disdain, and it's like, why should I care about this character who doesn't care about the people around him, who only seems to care about math and talking about science, and he doesn't have any real effect on the plot, like the characters around him do. Like, Sarah should be the focus of the story, like, because Sarah rescues the children, like, she fights Dodson, she like runs away from the T-Rexes and escapes, and she uses her brain a lot more than Ian Malcolm does, and much to the point where like Ian spends a lot of the end of the book like high on morphine, not really doing anything but mumbling to himself, and it's like, why did you bring this character back if you were going to make him such a goofball? That's, especially when that doesn't seem to be your intention. Like, you want to make him like the focus and like the action point. But I don't think it works out. So like, maybe like find a better way to write Ian Malcolm in the future. Otherwise, you just make him ineffectual and pointless. Overall, despite the flaws, I would say I really enjoyed this book. I really liked the tension that he built, and the interesting story. The plot is interesting, going back to at least one of the manufacturing islands, and fighting off the dinosaurs, and reading about the raptors and the T-Rexes and the compies and all the cool dinosaurs. It's a lot of fun. Like it's a real adventure. So it doesn't offer that much in terms of depth, I would say, but it's still an interesting read if you want to read something and don't think too hard about it. Even though Michael Crichton wants you to think a little hard about it, but he's not very good at that sometimes. So yeah, definitely go out there and read it if you can. It's a fine book. If you read this book before and you want to comment on some aspect of it that maybe I didn't see, feel free to do that in the comments below. I would love to hear from you and have a discussion about this interesting and fun book. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that other people can find out about Michael Crichton and his interesting writing style. Until then, I wish you the best of times in your weird and dinosaur-y travels. Farewell.